My goal over the next 5 years is to help 100 small business entrepreneurs a year
I don't get
make
that
$1 million.
part. You could go make your money, but this
Okay.
is this like a ministry, a
It
passion?
is. And I'm glad that you brought that up because I still do government contracting on the side as well. But
But
for
you're
me,
passionate about this.
I'm so passionate about this because I know how it changed my life. The government funded is funding and currently funding my legacy. I owned no land. I owned no real estate. I owned none of these things. At one point, I could barely go buy my kid a pair of shoes, right? And so doing business with the government completely changed that. So knowing what it did for me, I know what it can do for my people. I know what it can do for our communities. Like we're always marching about gentrification and we're always talking about all these different things. It takes money to make change. It takes money to make that change. And so for me, it's like, why don't we collectively come together, right? And just empower, and just the impact is so much bigger than me. It's so much bigger than me.
I don't even know what to ask. I mean,
I mean,
when
I'm
do
just
we
saying because the information is so powerful. Like I said, like what we're looking for is we're like my goal over the next 5 years is to help 100 small business entrepreneurs a year
I don't get
make
that
$1 million.
part. You could go make your money, but this
Okay.
is this like a ministry, a
It
passion?
is. And I'm glad that you brought that up because I still do government contracting on the side as well. But
But
for
you're
me,
passionate about this.
I'm so passionate about this because I know how it changed my life. When I was growing up, I had I grew up in a family of seven. My mom was single, and she worked her fingers to the bone. So with seven kids, it was a struggle, right? We never had like the brand name things. We never had like all that. We always had what we needed to have at minimum to survive. And so middle class and the working class mentality, that's something that's a generational curse. And for me as a young child, I always wanted to break that. I didn't want to just live regular. Like I felt like I was born to be a millionaire. I didn't know that it was going to take this to help me get there, right? And so for me, it's like I know what it did for me. The government is funding and currently funding my legacy. I owned no land. I owned no real estate. I owned none of these things. At one point, I could barely go buy my kid a pair of shoes, right? And so doing business with the government completely changed that. So knowing what it did for me, and the government had funded like more than 10 acres of land and is helping me build out my real estate portfolio. I couldn't have done that by myself working a 9 to 5. I couldn't have done that by myself chasing individual customers. I would never have gotten there. It had it not been for this relationship with the government. And so for me, because it does so much for me, I know what it can do for my people. I know what it can do for our communities. Like we're always marching about gentrification and we're always talking about all these different things. It takes money to make change. It takes money to make that change. And so for me, it's like, why don't we collectively come together, right? And just empower, and just the impact is so much bigger than me. It's so much bigger than me. The impact, I feel like I was called to do this. And my divine purpose is to create global impact for Black communities because we literally can transform. $1 million a year should be the norm. That should be the norm. You get more
You like
time
you
back
like
and more money.
you like on some Harriet Tubman silver rights type stuff.
It's just so real, like so
You
yeah,
like
so
you
so
like
for me,
Harriet Tubman. She went back and got her people. You got your
yes.
freedom, and you still going back helping Black people.
as many as want to be helped, because everybody don't want to be helped. Some people are fine where they are and they're okay with being who they are and where they are. Hey, thanks so much for watching this video. I hope you're enjoying it. I wanted to take some time to invite you to join me in the GovCon Challenge. The GovCon Challenge takes place once a month, where I invite a bunch of entrepreneurs and aspiring entrepreneurs to come and have me teach you the 5 things you must do to pre-qualify your business to land lucrative contracts with the government. So join me in the GovCon Challenge. Click on the link in the description. You'll be glad you did. Join as VIP for exclusive behind-the-scenes information, and you could become a part of the top 1% of entrepreneurs across the nation. Now back to the video you were watching. Right?
Listen, you mentioned buying your kid some shoes. I gotta ask you. You mentioned foundation. What's the family's role in your life?
Yeah.
The spouse, the kids. I would imagine everybody got a job. I grew up in a family business, and as soon as you're old enough to answer the phone, you got a job.
Yeah, so my kids are still they're still young. So my youngest is 2. My youngest is 2. My oldest is 25, and she just graduated. She has her PhD. She just graduated from Columbia University. She's a midwife. Yeah, so she's the first midwife in the family. So my kids are they're going through their college education. They're finding themselves right now. But entrepreneurship is definitely something. So my son, one of my sons, he's 18. He just graduated from high school, and he's already like, Mom, can you tell me about credit? Can you tell me why they don't teach these things in school? So I teach my kids about the things that I've learned so they can have that knowledge. Like, we talk about financial literacy. There's such a gap in understanding how credit is leveraged, how entrepreneurship is the vehicle that's going to help you get out of the middle class to the upper middle class or top class. Like, you can be one of the top 3% of millionaires in the world when you understand business. And so my son is like, Mom, can you help me start a business? So I'm like, yes, I'm going to show you exactly what you need to do. But first, you need to go get some education and go get some job experience, right? You have to get some job experience. Even though I don't believe in working for anybody else, you have to have some experience because that experience will carry over into your business.
Meaning you can't sweep your own floor until you learn how to sweep somebody else's
That part
floor.
again, serving others, right? Same thing.
What about in a world where our children, Black children, have this heightened sense of entitlement? How do we navigate that as parents? How do we know that we've taught them the basics, but they're also in a new world? Khalil Gibran in his book, The Prophet, says we are like the bow and they're the arrow, and they're going somewhere that we will never go. But we still want them not to lie, not to steal, not to cheat, not to kill. Take care of home, don't cheat, be clean, cook your food, grow your food. How do we do that in this really complicated world?
In this world, it's like it could be challenging because we didn't have, like, in our generation, we didn't have access to like the internet and social media. We didn't have access in outside influences, right? Our kids these days are highly influenced by what they see. And a lot of times what they see is really just a fragmented imagination. Like, it's not even real. So they think that you got to be a rapper to be rich. And a lot of those rappers are not rich. They're broke. If they don't have a business and they don't understand how to, these things, financial literacy, how to invest in, priceless commodities and assets, they're broke, right? So they're just
athletes too.
Yeah, athletes as well, right? If they don't have a business, which some of them, you can see that they understand this, and they're creating foundations and creating trust, and they have the entrepreneurial mindset, and they have businesses, right? That's the real way to make it. But the only thing you can do, like I would say, is you have to plant the seeds. You just have to continue planting the seeds. Some will go astray, but eventually they will. Your sheep know your voice. They will eventually come back home once they find themselves, and once they figure out for their own selves that my way didn't work, or this is just all a facade and it's just not real. They will come back. Just like a lot of us who grew up in the 80s, the 90s and beyond, and before then, we all grew up in the church, but a lot of people went astray, right? But like I said, your sheep, God says, my sheep know my voice. Eventually, you will come back to the basics. You will come back to the foundation that was built for you. And so this is the same thing that we need to do, think about when we're raising kids, right? As long as you've done everything that you're supposed to do as a parent to lay the right foundation, they will come back. You just have to let the bird fly, right? You have to let the bird fly. You have to let them out of the cage. They will come back.